Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Koteles Riha with Real Estate One, and welcome to Carons Corner Fireside Chat. Today we have Pat McKay with the Rochester Hills Museum and Hoosen Farm. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you here. Tell us what you do for the museum.
So I'm the museum manager at the Rochester Hills Museum at Hoosen Farm, and our site is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, so it's a national significant site. So we take that very seriously. And as the manager, my job is to make sure the buildings are maintained. That's always our number one priority. We have eight buildings on 16 acres, and so we do everything we can in this last postage stamp of the historic site there to maintain that. But then we also do lots of programming, and some of it, we always say that the three words we use, they're educational, they're cultural, and they're recreational. So we do kind of a wide variety of programming there to attract people to the community. And then our third priority is the archives. We maintain archives for both Rochester and Rochester Hills. And so we have all the oldest documents, and our job is to collect them, to preserve them, and to share them.
Yeah.
And so our job is to get them digitized and help to tell these remarkable stories that all tie around our community.
So how far back do you have records?
So our newspaper collection goes all the way back to the 1870s. And so that's great. So we have every newspaper digitized. They're searchable PDF documents. So with any event or any building, any name that you know in Rochester, you can go into a searchable PDF document, and it'll search all our newspapers for you. Our records would go back to roughly when the state of Michigan was established, 1830s.
Okay.
And so we have some really, really neat old stuff, and we just love sharing it.
So if I wanted to go online and do a search and start researching, how would I go to the website?
Yep.
Okay.
That's a good place to start, and we do have a lot on our website. However, there's a great collaboration in Oakland County, and it's called OCHR, Oakland County Historical Resources, and ochr.org. And it's where all the museums, libraries, and historical societies share one website.
Okay.
And so because here's the challenge, sometimes what happened in Rochester or Rochester Hills also influenced what happened in Oakland Township,
Yeah.
or Auburn Hills or Troy. And so all the Oakland County organizations have collaborated on one site. So you can go to our museum site gives you the directions on how to use that. And
Nice.
it's all there at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world, you can
Okay.
check out our local history.
Wonderful. I believe recently you did some renovation with like a roof or something
We
with
did.
the building, and that was a huge ordeal. Tell
was-
us a little bit how
It was
that went
it
down.
was a huge ordeal, and just
Yeah.
as we were starting this huge ordeal, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And
of
so
course.
things were delayed slightly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we were able to work through the pandemic. But these are barns and buildings that were built. Sometimes in ours date back to the 1840s. But the barn that was in question was a 1920s barn. And the challenge we run into is that building codes were different
a little
back
bit
then.
different then,
And
yeah.
so we were just kind of doing an annual structural inspection, and as our engineers were up there, they said, we see a problem. The roof structure wasn't strong enough to hold it, and there was no sagging, there was no sounds, there was no creaking. We didn't feel like it was an imminent danger, but they said that with a heavy wind load or a heavy snow load, and here we are in Michigan, there's a chance that this roof could come down. I mean,
Yeah.
it could come down in a hurry. And so
Yeah.
at some point we were evacuated out of the building. I mean, we within a couple of weeks we were pulling out,
Yeah.
and realized that we had a $2.5 million project on our hands, where every single roof truss and the entire roof from the ceiling up had to come off.
Yeah.
Which meant all the furnaces and all the heating, and we had some plumbing and electrical, our security system. It was every utility we
Yeah.
had to run through our attic, because these are all buildings that we've adaptively reused.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've taken barns that were designed to milk cows, and we have year-round exhibits and climate control, and so it was certainly a huge problem, and it wasn't something that we had planned for, and so
Oh, no,
money
not
wasn't
at
being
all.
set aside.
Right.
And so
yeah.
at some point, we had to approach our mayor and our city council and say, listen, we have these buildings, and the most reassuring part was that they said, we are committed to these buildings,
Yeah.
and our city has been. I mean, the museum's going on 45 years old this year, and they said, we are committed to
Yeah.
preserving these buildings. And so then, you know, with tongue in cheek, I said, you know, we have another building that we've been wanting to rebuild for a long time.
So while you're doing
And so
this
why we have all
one,
these
yeah,
contractors on site
sure.
who are skilled and talented, we already have architects, we already had a team in place. And so and as part of our next building was our equipment barn, and we wanted to do a full replacement. We had torn the building down, we tore it down, which is, boy, the hardest thing to do in historic preservation, but the building was in imminent danger of catastrophic
you
collapse.
have to.
This was 25 years ago, and before we tore it down, we did detailed architectural drawings of it and photographed everything. And so, you know, it's one of those, just to be there 25 years later, I was the one who helped, you know, document that building.
Yeah.
And we always said, we're gonna rebuild that building, and we did. And so
Yeah.
we were able to combine that, and as part of that, the museum had been collecting funds for years and years. So some of our projects are, you know, 25 years of fundraising,
Yeah.
you know, to come up with the money. So we did a $2.5 million roof replacement and a $1 million rebuild.
Wow.
So we $3.5 million.
You know
and-
what? This is the community, you know,
Yeah.
everybody sticks together and supports one another, and that's what I love about this area.
You know,
And
and, you know, we don't want to let the community down. I think more
No.
than anything, we said, we feel like they've entrusted us with the
Sure.
history of our community,
yeah.
and we don't want to let them down. And we also weren't afraid to express what the concerns are and what the needs have been.
Yeah.
And I think the city looked at that and said, you know what, we have been successful. We had our calf barn where we do most of our programs now. We did a $600,000 roof on that building, all private donations.
Mhm.
So and then our one-room schoolhouse, you know, 15 years ago, the school system said, you know, we're not really good at maintaining one-room schools. Would you guys like to have it? And we worked on this great partnership to transfer ownership from the Rochester Community Schools to the city of Rochester Hills, and the museum would operate that. But it was in 2009, the economy was not doing well. Interest rates were terrible if you're trying to buy a house.
Yeah.
And so we approached donors and raised the money, I mean, quickly
Yeah.
to stabilize that building, and we still have, you know, students enjoying a one-room schoolhouse experience.
Every one of our kids went through,
Yeah.
did that field trip
We take
there,
that really
and
seriously.
it's
You know,
pretty
we
cool.
want kids to have that great experience, because
Yeah.
for a lot of times, that's the way we really touch kids and their parents is through that experience in our
Mhm.
buildings. And so we are still doing it.
Yeah.
It's been since 1976.
So how long have you been a manager here?
I've been there 38 years
Oh, just
this
a
year.
couple of years.
Yeah, just a
Nice.
couple of years.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I started, it was just the Hoosen farmhouse. It was
Mm-hmm.
one house and 3 acres. And over the course of years, you know, we started writing some master plans that we started identifying what needed to happen. I kept looking across the road, seeing this farmstead, you know, with barns with every window's broken.
Mhm.
Things were leaning, roofs were sagging, and we kept saying, we need to own these buildings. It's a significant part of our story. So the exciting day was when we said, okay, we now own this property, and I looked at barns with all broken windows and a sagging roof,
You're
and we
like,
said, oh my
"Look at
gosh,
what I
what
got."
have we gotten into?
Yeah.
No barbed wire, underground gas tanks. It was like
Mhm.
every problem you could imagine, asbestos, radon, everything.
Yeah.
And we just took every year we took another bite out of it
And look at how far you've
stabilized
come.
buildings, and it bought us like 10 years of doing fundraising, and that's what we needed. And it took us a while to get the vision on what we thought our community wanted and needed. We had to ask a lot of people and say, what are we missing? How do we not compete with what's going on in Rochester? How do we complement what's already going on here?
Yeah.
And it's been a remarkable, you know, adventure. It really has been, and the people we've met and the events that we've been able to do are just a blast. It's fun going to
Yeah,
work.
you have a lot of events. I mean, just one of the small events was at Halloween time with the scarecrows, and we went and our team went and, you know, stuffed a scarecrow, and that was a lot of fun.
You guys have been a part of this for a long time.
Yeah, we look forward to that every year,
You know,
but I know people have weddings there. There's so much to do. Photos for senior portraits.
The goal is to share the site. You know, we never want to put our arms around and keep people out. We want to embrace people in. We don't have gates. I mean, we have gates. We haven't closed the gates in 38 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's open 24 hours a day. Our grounds are. We're a public park, and we want to share it.
Yeah.
And we want to share our buildings for. We've done bat mitzvahs. We've done weddings. We've done memorial services. We've done, you know, birthday parties, homeowners association meetings. We want every organization in Rochester to be successful, because if they're successful, then our whole community is successful.
Right.
And so we do some non-traditional things. Like, for instance, in 2 weeks we have Reptile Roundup, Reptile Roundup means people are walking around our barn with boa constrictors and tarantulas walking up their arms, and that is as non-traditional as you could possibly get. And yet there's a world out there. I want them to be successful. I want them to be, to reach their dreams and what their interests are. We have another group that loves model trains, and they set up a huge model train. And so we just like, wrapping our arms around them, embracing them and finding, when we lock arms with lots of other groups, we have some great collaborations. And I think this town is known for its collaborations. I think when everybody gets together, we do great things and fun things happen, and, we're just trying to create these great family experiences.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a fantastic job. So how did this all get started?
In 1979, Michigan State University actually owned the house. Sarah Van Hoosen Jones, who was the 5th generation of a family, which is a remarkable story. 5 generations living in the same house. Sarah was the last one to live there. She was an only child. She had never married. And there was not going to be a 6th generation. And she had been on the board of trustees at Michigan State University and thought the Van Hoosen Farm could be somehow an educational facility going forward after her death. And so she willed it all to Michigan State University. So it was the farm, which was at that point 350 acres, and there were 17 houses.
Okay.
And they're all privately owned now in Stony Creek Village. And by 1970, so she did this in the 1950s. By the 1970s, Michigan State saying, we don't need an experimental farm in Rochester, Michigan.
Right, yeah.
And so it was put up for sale. She put no covenants on the property. She said Michigan State should do what's best for Michigan State. And so Michigan State said, we're going to just divest ourselves. And so they started selling all the property off. And a local group, the Questers, which is mostly a women organization, there were 5 chapters in Rochester, and they circulated a petition asking MSU to save the Van Hoosen farmhouse, not to sell that, to return it to our community as a history museum. But then you need somebody to accept that. And Earl Borden was the mayor. We have Borden Park here in Rochester Hills. Earl Borden was that visionary who said, this town is booming, it's going to be, it's certainly going to be that bedroom community to Detroit. And he saw the need for starting to preserve our stories. And so he accepted it.
Nice.
And so that's how it started in 1979. March of 1979, the museum was established.
Well, so you talked about the reptiles coming to Rochester. Any other big events coming this way?
Yeah, we do non-traditional things too. We do a film festival in February, and we do lecture series throughout the month of March, and it's just ways to talk about history and different ways that it connects to Rochester. And sometimes they're just independent movies that we show are just a little quirky, but it shows you I guess the resilience of people. I think that's a good reminder for us. But we do a program called Wet and Wild Wednesdays. And it's a chance on every Wednesday in July. We do entertainment in our gazebo, and then everything water related after that. We have a foam machine, fire trucks, Stony Creek runs through our property, and these big sheets of plastic where kids can run and slide. Last year, twice, we had to close the site down because we had too many people.
Oh, I'm sure.
So at 1,200 people, we finally said we cannot park another car on our site. My goal with that event has always been, I want kids to go home at night and say, we went to the museum today and had a blast.
Right.
And just to start getting them to become history lovers, to understand that there's a value to history museums.
Well, Pat, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with your group?
We want people to come and visit the museum. We are tucked off. We're not on Main Street. We are tucked off. But I always say when people say that, they don't know where we are. I said we've been in the same spot since 1823.
You're not going anywhere.
So we've been there. And last year we celebrated the 200th anniversary of the village of Stony Creek that surrounds the museum. So it is a very unique story because of the buildings. The people that live there, and our story is not only great because of just the Taylor Van Hoosen family that first initiated, but it's a strong story about women scientists. That is, it's not anywhere else. I mean, when you look at the history of other towns throughout the Midwest of the U.S., nobody compares to Rochester, Michigan, and what happened in our town. So it is. We have a unique collection of buildings. We have a story that's unlike anybody else's. No other town can tell the story that we can tell. And so we just have such a unique opportunity, and we are so blessed and fortunate, I think, to live in this town. And if people want to learn more about it, whether you've lived here for years or you find that Rochester is now your home, come to the museum and we'll tell you why it's a great town.
Yeah, well, you're very convincing. Let me tell you.
Good, come.
Thank you so much for being here
You're
and sharing
welcome.
with us the story of the Rochester Hills Museum and Van Hoosen Farm. I mean, like we talked about earlier, this is the best place to live around, and we're very fortunate. So thank you for
Thank-
being here with us.
Thank you. Thanks for being a
Yes.
small business in Rochester.
Oh,
You know, we want to support all those businesses because that's where
Yeah.
I think that makes up the fabric of our community. So
I think
thanks
so
to you.
too. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
very much. Pat McKay with Rochester Hills Museum and Hoosen Farm, and I'm Caron Koteles Riha. Don't make a move without me.